So as Andrea said, Leaf Haugen, and so for me, I always like to start with my lookout. So this is Toma. I didn't inspect the slides, and I just looked at them for the first time, and they're a little out of order, so I'm going to jump around a little bit. And also, Andrea, I'll try and keep my eye on the clock. If I start going long, just give me a tap. So again, Toma Lookout, Flathead National Forest. This is the lookout I staff. Neat story with this one is it was abandoned basically for 39 years. And in 2009, I did an assessment on it for the Flathead. And they chose to go the full rehab and staff option. And so I moved over to Toma from Numa Ridge in the park, which is basically just across the valley. So it was really fun because it's the first time it was an empty shell. There was nothing in it. And so other than the stovepipe was through the roof, so that's where the stove went, and I built basically everything from there. It was really fun to figure out, you know, and I try to do everything pretty historic. The cabinets are a little custom, but the archaeologist thought that was an appropriate choice. So again, that's looking toward Glacier Park. And so, so basically, my job is staff to lookup, but I do, when I'm not staffing lookouts, I work on them. And so this is just obviously some of the designs that are fun. This is New Ridge in the park, in Glacier Park. Jumbo and the Bob Marshall Wilderness in the Flathead. Holland Peak, Old Holland Lookout, we call this one, really unique, non-standard structure. Had to redo all the masonry. This is the view. And so, like I said, it's kind of jumping around a bit with the slides, but what I'm going to focus on is Grave Peak. And so this is the view looking from Friday Pass area toward Grave Peak. Obviously, that upper left corner, you can pick out the structure there. So I think my role, I always consider my role first and foremost is a fire lookout. But as most of you know, it can be a challenging job. It's not easy a lot of times. And so in my end, having done it as long as I have, my goal is always to support the staffing and maintenance of other lookouts as well. And that's why, you know, we've instituted a training program for lookouts to make sure everybody has the best information to succeed as a lookout and to be comfortable when you're up there by yourself for summer, especially when you get busy with fire. And as we're going to keep hearing, to me, I mean, it's a very important job. And I know we touched on AI a little bit in the last session, but detection is just part of it. And I don't see this work going away, especially, and that's what my fire managers keep saying to me is, you know, they don't see any reason to stray from the way we're doing it right now because they feel like it's a very successful program, supports the fire effort, and supports the communities that we're looking over as well. So, Grave Peak. Once I'm done with my staffing season, my office is very kind to me and lets me go wherever I want, do whatever. As long as my role on the Flathead is complete, I can go to the Nez Perce Clearwater or wherever or into the Bob Marshall. I spent a lot of time in the Bob Marshall Wilderness this past season working on a structure there. So they're very good to me in the sense that I get to move around and just make my own agenda. As a part of that, I in the mid 2010s, I started going through a lot of the lookouts on the Nez Perce Clearwater. And as a part of that, ended up getting to Grave Peak. My friend Anna Bankston was a wilderness ranger for that area. And she got me to sneak up here and take a look. So for me, it all starts with an assessment. And there's a slide here. I will get to that later. So basically, it starts with an assessment. And Cindy, we talked to Cindy Shacker, archaeologist for that forest. about just starting this process. And so what I do is when I go up, I take copious notes, take a lot of time, spend the night usually, and make a big expansive list with usually options and prices. I'm also a house builder and carpenter when I'm not doing the lookout. So I'm pretty comfortable with budgets, timelines, and stuff like that. So grave was part of that, went up, spent 2 days and a night looking really closely at it. And it had seen some attention in the late 90s. They put new shutters on to help secure the building. And that was really at that point in 2018 was when I did the assessment. It had probably been 20 years since it's seen, other than just general care by a visitor. It hadn't really seen any coordinated maintenance. So you can see the condition the roof was in. You can see where those windows go. I'll get to some of those later because some. Well, I apologize. So put together an assessment, gave it to Cindy in the forest on basically what I saw the needs were, timeframes, budgets, and the process, like what needed immediate attention, what could wait, things like that. So I submitted the assessment in the fall, and over the winter, started planning for it. It's funny, one of my bosses on the Flathead, when I started moving to other locations to do this kind of work, he said, really what we're trying to do in the restoration lookouts is make it hard for somebody to say no. So the big thing we're doing is make it not very expensive, not very challenging. Now, obviously, sometimes that falls on a bunch of effort from myself and or usually the fire crew and or volunteers. So it's all about getting a team together that can make it happen. Working with Cindy in the Nez Perce Clearwater, basically the assessment, it wasn't that challenging. I mean, it's a long-term project. And so the forest could provide some funding, and Gary Weber and the Forest Fire Lookout Association also provided some funding. So once we get approval, start getting the money together, it's just getting material lists, purchasing, getting everything organized so that hopefully one day you can mobilize. And this is day one of the of the 2019 rehab work that we did at Grave. Pete Armicardi and myself went, met at Powell, managed everything up, and then drove the trailhead to start packing materials in. The problem with Grave Peak is it's rugged. I mean, you'll see more photos as we go along, but the pack string can only make it to the pass, Friday Pass, that's a mile and a half below the lookout. From there, everything else was Sherpa work. Humans, it took us 37 Sherpa loads to get the roof and the flooring from Friday Pass up to the lookout, and all our tools, all our equipment. It is wilderness, so it was all hand tools, but in our food, I mean, all the materials and gear for the project. In fact, it's so rugged that even from Swamp Lake to Friday Pass, Pete was not very happy with packing that, and he said he would never do it again. It took us 1 hour to do the last half mile, and he was out of pig instrument at that point. He was trying to figure out what we were going to do if he kept breaking ropes, because basically I'd go ahead 40, 50 feet, and he'd say if he could do that route or not. Yeah. And then they'd all come to me and I'd grab them and we'd scout some more. So it took us a long time. So I gave him some time to think about it, but on the way down, we had a second day of packing to do. And so when we're kind of in a more easygoing area, I said, we don't have to do this tomorrow. And he said, since I've done it today, I know the route, I'll do tomorrow, but I don't want to do it again. And the next day went pretty well. But since that trip, everything is now just Sherpa work. And so that's the crew loading up.
It looks so happy.
Oh yeah, and they still look happy up top and dirty. So you can see it, and it's a complicated building in sense of trying to re-roof. It was probably one of the more challenges to figure out the rigging to re-roof that cupola. I've re-roofed some other cupolas, and what's nice, you can get a ladder on the ground. This one, because it's so rocky and steep, I couldn't set the ladder on the ground anywhere. There were a lot of times I said, don't take photos of what I'm doing right now, because it probably wasn't approved, government approved behavior. I felt comfortable with that, but at that point, it was challenging. One of the neat things is when I was tearing the roof off and took the underlayment off, Bill Bell, Davis Ranger from that area. This was built sometime 1922 to 1924. Accounts vary, but when I took the underlayment off, it said Bell Solo, if you can't read that, which was pretty cool. That was one of the neat things we found. We also found the box that the firefinder would come in on the mules, and they repurposed that box into some cabinetry. So on the back side of one of the cabinets, it said Leopold Volpol, Portland, Oregon, and I think it might have had a date. I can't remember. So that's the crew. Nate Rath, I forget, that was one of the archaeologists text, Cindy. I can't remember her name. Well,
Jenny,
okay. And Dennis DeVoke. He's a retired firefighter friend from Glacier Park. So that was the crew. That's us enjoying our completed roof. And then we did lay new floor at the same time. My one regret, it was probably a little early, but we had money, effort, and energy. And the problem is there's so much glass missing from the windows at this point. It's shuttered, but as you know, in a lookout, if it doesn't have glass, and there's plenty of moisture that's going to get through the shutters. And so the floor did buckle. It's manageable, but until all the windows are 100% complete, I don't feel a need to totally reset it. There's Nate.
The beer run?
Yeah, and the big thing, you can see new door, new roof. This is us leaving at the very end of that first 2019 rehab project. And this was to show us mobilizing. I mean, oftentimes I'm coming from Northwest Montana. There's been a few times where the back of the truck's totally full and I'm throwing stuff on top of the topper as well. Or my dog doesn't have any space in the cab other than the front seat. And a lot of times being wilderness, I'll set up at the trailhead a little mini shop. So especially for this project, a number of times I bring a generator and some power tools. So to where if I can't make it happen with hand tools, I'll blast down the trailhead at night, do my milling, my ripping, whatever, and then carry it back up the next morning.
In the dark.
Sometimes in the dark. Yeah, sometimes in the dark. So this was our most recent project, 2024. We reset 4 of the 8 cupola windows. We had enough help to carry all 8 up, but I knew I wasn't going to find everything plumb, square, easy to operate. I'm very happy we didn't take all 8 windows up because we were able to install 4 in areas that were pretty plumb and square, but the other location is going to need some it's going to need some power tools to make those windows right. So I don't know that we'll get there this summer just because of all the government uncertainty. It's hard to plan. So hopefully 2026 we'll have another Sherpa and/or window replacement effort. Obviously, these were rebuilt off the window that we had. Gary Weber, had the windows in his shop or barn from 1998 when they installed the new shutters. So basically that's what I could rehab a couple of them and then just rebuild some more with an exact replica. This is the Sherpa crew from this summer. Had a lot of young labor. Of course, what happened for this trip is you pick a date and you try and mobilize your crew, get everybody together, and it happened to be the hottest stretch of weather all summer. And oftentimes with the kids weren't too keen on getting up at 5 in the morning and trying to get started in the dark when it was a little bit cooler. So there was a lot of trail time in the heat that over the course of 3-4 days. There's just another style. This is a good example though, compared to Great Peak, basically where we could do all the roofing on the cupola from the ground because it's such a flat site. This is McGuire Mountain on the Kootenai National Forest. Same style lookout, 1920 days from 1923. That's me and 4 volunteers. Okay, this was where I was getting my photo of, it all starts with an assessment. So this is me walking up to make a plan for the assessment.
Where's the trail in that picture?
Always follow the dog. The dog is really smart at finding the way up and finding snow to cool off in. But yeah, the trail, you can see why this pack string can't make it up.
They wouldn't, they'd say no.
And then this is just inspecting after, in between some of those projects. I always try and make a trip there every year just to check on it. I think a lot of other people, Nate sneaks up there just to make sure. I think some of the slides, there's me carrying a bunch of boards. The other thing I was trying to show, and I might have glassed through those photos, is in the midst of all this, we do the rehab, and then 2020 a fire was threatening, so they wrapped it. Wrapping always does some damage, and hopefully the crew is conscious, takes enough care to pull all the staples and not just leave them. There's always mixed success with that. This was pretty good. And then in 2022, what fire was that, Nate? Do you remember?
It was
Wind Lakes fire burned right up and over, right past the lookout. The trees that are right at the lookout burned. And somehow, I think Chukowski said, the FMO said the ghost of Bill Bell saved that because they didn't have a chance to wrap it. It just made a quick run up the hillside and spotted on the other side. So I'll try and get back to those fire photos if I can. Oh, those single pane windows. Oh, and these two were examples of other lookouts. You know, every assessment and or structure you work on is different. This is Waldy.
Where's that?
There you
That
go.
big air motor?
Yep. Yeah. That's the only time I worked on air motor. This is Baptiste Lookout on the Flathead. That was probably one of the worst condition lookouts I've ever worked on. And it's probably now one of our most tricked out. And it's staffed.
When did you work that one?
Baptiste was 2011, 2012, 2011, 2012. And then we put that in our volunteer program. Once we finished it, we staffed it right away, which is cool. So yeah, here's the fire. You can see I'm basically at the lookout looking down toward the lake. And it came right up that chimney, came up and over. So, and I think before I wrap up, again, I mean, it's a total team effort on this. And I just want to honor Cindy and Nate, Gary Weber, Brandon Chukowski, Anna Bankson. I mean, what's fun about this was it takes a lot of effort from all of us to make it happen. And we were talking beforehand, something came up, and we were telling some of the stories, and it's been a very rewarding project. And what's fun is to bump into some people who have hiked up there before and hiked up after, not knowing that there was any maintenance going on, and their surprise and gratitude to see that people are looking after it.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
All right.